Okay, so if you don't know why you're here, it's password overload or just passwords in general. Seems like a very simple thing, but it's not. I'm going to try and get through all of this. My last seminar on tech scams and frauds was supposed to be an hour and a half. We talked for about 2 hours, and I was trying to make this one shorter, but I think it ended up slightly longer. So I'm going to do the best I can. There was so much good information that I don't think I could have. No, you're good. I'll pick them up after. Yeah, thank you though. Okay, so let's get to it. So again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dylan Wisdom. I am an IT administrator or a systems administrator and an IT consultant. I've been doing this for over 7 years. I'm globally certified with CompTIA in Security Plus. And then those are other things that I help businesses do. That doesn't pertain to us, but that's who I am. This is just to show you that, again, I'm not some crazy person up here just trying to tell you crazy information. Okay, so I wanted to start off by why are we talking about this? So again, I embellished with the real life example that I was dealing with today, but the first presentation type seminar that I taught was over tech scams and frauds, right? So 90% of threats are social engineering and scams. Tech scams and frauds, right? 81% of breaches are due to weak passwords and poor password management. So that's why we're here. It's one of the second most common ways that people are compromised, and that makes changes to your livelihood, that makes changes to your financial status, it's devastating, or can be devastating. My goal is to hopefully make it not devastating. We can get ahead of this, right? Is everyone still hearing me okay? Yes. Great. Okay, so in other words, and here's a little, I'm a numbers person, but anyway, breaches due to weak or stolen passwords is about 80% of them. Breaches due to unique and securely stored passwords, less than 5%, we'll say around 5%. So it's a big deal. Even though it's simple, it's a big deal. Okay, so if any of these apply to you, I'm glad you're here, because we're going to teach us why we shouldn't be doing any of these things. And along with that is if you've heard any of these myths, we're going to try and go into depth on why those are not necessarily true and why you should be paying attention to things this way. Okay? As long as everyone's hearing me okay, I'm going to move this so it's not in the way. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Nope, you're absolutely right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I think the in-between was these ones. Are you guys okay with it off? Yeah, I'm okay with it off. Okay. I was like, I don't mind as long as everyone else is okay with it. No? Okay. Sorry. Unfortunately, I don't have any control on the lighting here, but okay. So, good. So what is our goal here today? So essentially my goal is to take you from being uncomfortable and unknowledgeable of passwords and everything related to that, and making you feel more confident and understanding of this whole subject, right? Of course. Okay, what we're going to cover today. So I've tried to break it into very understandable sections. We're going to understand what passwords actually are. I mean, we know what they are, but what are they? How do we use them, etc.? Creating passwords, right? Self-explanatory. Managing your passwords. And then securing your passwords, which sounds like a redundancy, but there's a lot of good information here. I promise I put it in here for a reason. Okay, any questions thus far? We good to go? Okay, understanding passwords. Okay, this is just a brief explanation of what we're going to do. I'll get into it further. This is more for later when you have the slides, you know what I'm trying to do here. So So what are passwords really? So you can go ahead and read the text on the slide, but what I want to make clear is that a password is your one defense between your personal information that no one else should have access to and someone else having access to it, right? So that brings a huge, crucial role into that, if you think of it that way, right? I know passwords seem like these annoying things that we have to deal with, but really they're your only line of defense, essentially, or your first line of defense, let's say like that. Okay, so again, why are they important? They protect your identity. They secure your data and accounts, and they prevent unauthorized access, right? Okay, so what is password overload? So again, I'm a numbers guy. So if you look at the average person has around 80 to 100 passwords that they have to manage. And that seems like an extreme number, right, when you put it on paper, but then if you start looking at your banks, your health accounts, everything, insurance, etc., you would be amazed by how fast that blows up, right? And that's just the average person. Someone like me, I probably have around 200 myself that I have to use, right? And because there's so many, I mean, come on, we're only human, right? Like, how can we manage to memorize 100 different passwords? So they're hard to manage, and because they're hard to manage, that creates frustration. And because you get frustrated with them, that puts you at higher risk because then you get lazy. And it's not your fault. I mean, it's hard, right? But that's what we're going to figure out why and how to prevent this. So if you feel like this, I can't remember them. I use the same password for everything. I write them down in a notebook, sticky notes, whatever. Again, these are bad practices, but I'm hoping today that I can show you how to avoid these bad practices, but not make your life difficult, right? Everyone still hear me okay? Okay. I get quiet, so if I need to speak up, just raise your hand, poke me, whatever. Okay, so first things first, we're going to talk about these passwords, right? And I'm going to go over the anatomy of a bad password. Can you see? I'm sorry, I'm kind of standing in your way. Okay, so common things that we're going to go into more detail on are they're too short, they're predictable or have common patterns, they're based on real words, family names, pet names, things like that. They're reused multiple times across different accounts. And they tend to be stored insecurely, either digitally or physically, right? If you write them down in a Word document, that's unsecure. If you write them down in a notebook, that's not necessarily secure either, right? Raise your hands if one of these applies to you. Yeah. Great. No, but I'm happy that you're all here, and we're going to figure out how to do this better, right? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Feel like I'm missing a slide, but that's okay. Okay, so too short. This is pretty self-explanatory, and these are very bad examples, right? But I want to point across is length alone, regardless of anything else, adds a lot of complexity. And complexity means more secure, right? Again, that also makes our lives harder because then we have to remember more complex passwords, but that's true. The longer it is, the better it is. Oh, and then, sorry, I'm giving you live demonstrations too. So, I just want to show you here, and I'm sorry for those who can't see, I don't know what to do with the lights, but in this website it's fairly dark. But, in other words, if we look at the slide I just gave you, A, B, C, D, right? Less than a second to crack your password. Makes sense. Alphabet. So less than a second to a second, and all you did is add more alphabets. That's still a terrible password, but you can already see it went from 1 millisecond to 60 milliseconds, just adding a few more characters. Now, we start adding more things into it like this, other characters, even a word. See? 11 seconds is still not very long, but compared to 1 second, that's 11 times more complex. Yeah, and we're going to build on this concept. I'm going to show you more passwords as we go on and on. Any questions? Yeah.
Some sites only limit you to like 8 characters, or
yeah,
and some require you a minimum of like 10 or 12. It varies on every website.
That is correct. Yeah, so most websites, so it was more of a statement than a question, but she was like, some websites make you do a minimum, some don't, and then some limit you, right? Generally speaking, I have only seen a few websites, and you are right, that actually limit you on how many you can do. And usually those are anywhere between 32 and 64 characters, which for modern day passwords, as long as you're doing good password conventions, is plenty long enough. Now, when you start getting, so most websites usually give you a minimum of 8. That is technically, you can make really secure passwords that way, but you're getting into the territory of you should probably do something different. But you're 100% right. Every website has their own policy, but I advise you to go above and beyond the policy. But I definitely know it definitely feels like, okay, I'm just going to get this account created because I don't really want to do this right now anyway. And then hopefully later on in the slides, I'm going to show you how creating accounts like that and storing the passwords can be simplified a lot. So, okay, let's go back. And great. Okay, so on how long our password is, what we were looking at. And then strong passwords can be tricky to create, right? Like, even though I said length is important, we added, I don't know, probably 10, 16 characters, and it was still considered not strong. So it's like, okay, so what do we do then? And as you're going to see, this is all one factor in a whole big picture, right? Okay, predictable or common patterns. Again, these are very dramatic examples, but you would be surprised on who attempts this. Most websites now, as you mentioned, they do usually scan credentials for basic things, but you do see these still pop around. And although those are common, you do see a lot of this. And I guarantee you there's going to be at least a few people in here who have a name and a date next to it as their password. Or a pet, or I guess, yeah, a name and a date, right? Or a date and a name. Those are patterns. The reason why those are considered patterns is because, I think most of us probably have a Facebook account, and most people can see your name and your birth age on there, or your birth year at least. And you put those two things together, you can start running through passwords. It's pretty easy, right? What are you doing there? Okay. Sorry.
To like use the word backwards, like if you're spelling John, spell it backwards. Does that help any in reversing it?
Yeah, you could. We'll get to that. So the reason why you don't want to use words is because words are here. I'm gonna do this first, and then I'll stop.
Too easy to pick out.
No, so let's look at that really quick. So this is going to look more on like word complexity, but if we do the password John, it's less than a second. Still less than a second. That's a bad example, but it can increase complexity, but there's still a lot of things you need to do around that to buffer it. Because still at this point, so the way it's looking at complexity now is you have 4 letters, and it's calculating how long it would take a computer to go through every single option. So if you have 4 characters, the computer is going to go A through Z on each character and every single combination. Even though that sounds like a lot, it takes a computer this long to do that, right? So Again, so in terms of words, yes, it makes it more different because you're not going to find that in a dictionary or in a list of names. But in terms of computing, it's still going to be able to run through it really quick. Yes? That is a great thing to do, and I will get to that in this piece of information. Yes. No, that is a great tactic. So she asked, what happens if you change the O in John to a 0 or an @ sign or something like that? Substitutions are fantastic. They're great. And we'll get to those more because those are a great tool. If you want a little teaser, hopefully later on these slides, I know there's going to be some people that password managers seem really too big for them, but if you do it in the way I suggest, which that's not the only way, right? You don't even have to create your own passwords. You just have to store them. That's the dream, right? So we'll get there. But this is for the people to understand why we're doing this. But great question. So this is Nord. They're a company that does VPNs, safes. They're huge in security. And this is their list of most common passwords. I know it's insane, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is still the top password. Yes. And it seems insane, right? Okay, so let's throw some words in it. QWERTY. If you guys don't know who QWERTY is, it's just straight line across the keyboard, right? So these are real numbers. I mean, they store passwords, not that they access those passwords, but they have statistics because they see what people are putting in. It's crazy stuff. Please don't ever do that. I'd rather you have a pet name and a date rather than those. But this is what we're talking about, predictable or common passwords. The other thing about common passwords is that even if the password is secure, but it's common, which seems contradictory, but it does exist, if that common password has been in a breach, which is likely, that means that if you have the same password that's been in a breach, it could be, your account could be compromised, right? Okay, so we got that there. So based on anatomy, based on real words, so that's what I was talking about with John. So generally speaking, using real words in any way in your passwords are very apt to get compromised because list of names, list of or dictionary items, anything you can find in that way. Let's say that you have John and then a number. So they don't have to guess all the letters in John to get John. They just have to go through the top 100 names, 1,000 names, which takes a computer like this. Then they guess the 3 numbers that you have after that. It makes it really easy for them to do what they want to do. Am I still talking loud enough? Okay. Any questions so far? Yes?
I have a tendency to use my address from when I was a child, which is not listed anywhere.
Okay.
Just the numbers from it.
So you just gave me an idea of something else I could add to this. So I'm writing that down before I forget. So okay, so I see the concept there in your heads. It's an address, yes. Okay, so for who didn't hear the question, it was she was saying she uses a previous address in her passwords as something that is easy to remember, but not directly identifiable, which I would mostly agree with that statement. The question you have to ask yourself is, definitely an address, if it doesn't relate back to you, is better than using your current address, but is there anywhere someone in a breach, let's say that AT&T, you had AT&T service at both addresses. As an example, hear me out on that. Sure. Yeah, sure. So in your specific case, maybe that's okay because I don't think there's a specific way for them to draw back to you, right? But just something I want to make everyone aware of, if you do use an old address because it's not your current address and it dissociates you like that, like I said, if you had a bill at AT&T at both places and then you moved and then AT&T had a breach, they would have access to both those addresses. So the questions you have to ask yourself is there any way that address can be traced back to me at that time? For you, that chance is very slim since you were a child. but you just have to be aware of that conscious effort to make those decisions. But that's a good tactic. I don't see a problem with that.
I've read, and I've stopped doing this altogether.
Sure.
Facebook, people are going onto Facebook accounts and asking these rather simple, not security issue questions like, oh, what was your address when you were growing up?
100%.
And
yes.
people are taking that information from something simple in Facebook.
Yep.
And people are slamming it.
Yes. So so there's two reasons why they might do that. And that is something I did not address in this presentation, but I will add because it's a good point. So so her question was, people on Facebook, malicious people, actors as we call them, are asking you for what seems like very simple information. What are they going to do with that? Okay, but the thing that they're doing, the goal, is like, let's say they ask you for your street address or what state you grew up or whatever it is. So number one, if they ask you questions like, oh, when's your anniversary, things like that. How's your husband? Oh, my husband John is doing great. Our anniversary just happened. We were married in 1970, right? So if your password is John 1970, they're going to be able to guess that. That's what they're doing. It's social engineering. They're making you do the hard work for them, right? Second reason why they might do that, and I think the industry has gotten away from this because of this reason, but security questions. So have you ever had to set up security questions? And they ask you questions like that. If you have 100 passwords and each one of those passwords asks you for 3 security questions, are you going to remember what each security question was?
No.
Right. So let's say that one asked you for an anniversary date. You're like, I don't think I put that in anywhere. And then you did? Well, yeah. I mean, yes.
Favorite football team?
Don't do it. No, I'm not. Yeah.
And then I find out, did I put it in small letters?
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
or did I use Chiefs capital letters in the
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I go to security question 2, and that probably hangs there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a never-ending issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is actually a never-ending issue. And I think that's probably why I forgot to include it here, because we're getting away from security questions. The concept of a security question makes a lot of sense. It's another way to verify you as you. But the thing is, they become cumbersome. I don't remember what mine are, to be honest with you. I've been trying to get rid of all of them. And then they just become a pain. So, but yes, there are still some systems out there that rely on that kind of information to secure your account, so you could be liable for that. But absolutely, social engineers try all the time to get what seems like very unimportant information from you. But we're creatures of habit, right? I mean, we want things that make sense. We want things that we can remember, and it only makes sense to use important dates and names like anniversaries, so on and so forth. This is nothing that is coming out of my mouth is ever accusatory here. I used to be like this. We've all done it, right? The goal is just to make sure that we do things better, because I know we all have bad habits. Okay, reuse across accounts. Yeah, even if it's so John 1970 or John 19, or excuse me, same reused across accounts could mean like using John 1970 on one account. Then of course, if you use the exact same password, that's not good. But it could also be where you use John 19:7 @. In my opinion, that's still the same password, right? If they guess one account, they're like, okay, this person uses John. Let's see what we can do with John. And if they have John, the name, and then they can just change the O's, or they can just change the others. It makes it a lot easier for them. You're taking a lot of the guesswork out, right? Yes?
What about the email address? Because I get that one fairly frequently, that they have found that in a breach, that my email address has been out there.
Yeah. So in my opinion, your email address nowadays should just be considered public. there's so many data breaches, and your email is almost one of the first. And we'll actually look at that. I have a cool little tool up here. I'll show you guys on how to tell if your email, even if you've never gotten a letter from someone. I have a tool that I can show you where you can plug in your email address or a password you use and see if it's been compromised. So that's cool too. And you can see what entity and things like that. So I'll show you. But yeah, your email, I'm not saying it is out there, but I would go forward in life just assuming that everyone has access to that, and to be weary of that, you know what I mean? Not access to the email, not can log in, but know of your email. Can send you an email is what I'm saying. And that's why you always got to be on the guard for those social engineering techniques, right? Make sure that when you get an email, verifying it's real and non-malicious, so on and so forth. In a perfect world, every single account you should have a completely different password. That's my official statement. But if you're gonna tell me that that's not feasible for you, which I understand, my next second best statement is your email and your financial accounts or anything that has a card associated with it should have its own separate password. Bare minimum, in my opinion. The reason why that is, so the financial accounts, I think that makes sense to us, right? Our banks. The reason why email is because your email still is your number one secondary source of proof of who you are. So let's say that your bank and your email account have the same password. If they guess your bank account and your bank sees that it's weird traffic and they're like, oh, we sent a code to your email to verify it's you. Well, if you use the same password, they can log into your email account, potentially, get that code, and now they're in your bank. So, does that concept make sense? That's very important in my mind. Yep.
So, just to use real simple things.
Sure.
You're saying, like I said, bank in America and I bank at Citibank.
Yes.
So, if my password, just being real simple, is 12345.
Yep.
And I have like an at CACU, and then I have 12345 at CITY.
Not good. And the reason why that is because you're associating your password with that entity. So why wouldn't they start with that first? Right? If you're banking at Community America Credit Union, why wouldn't they start putting CACU in those passwords, right? The thing we have to assume is that the people who are really going out for you for your money, they're not dumb people. They're very brilliant. And the thing is if there's been one person that they've gotten a password from for CACU, they're going to take that and they're going to use that, right? That's knowledge. They know, okay, one person had this idea to use this password like this. I bet you other people had the same idea. And they're right. Yeah.
I have a question. Why is it we're limited on trying a password that we can't remember to 3 times and then it shuts you down? Well, if someone's trying to find out, aren't they limited also?
Yes. You are 100% correct. And without getting into huge technical details, there are ways. So what you're doing is there's a computer, like I'll say server, on the back end of what you're looking at. So you're on one screen, and then you're on other. So there are ways where they can actually go behind the scenes, and go directly to where your password is stored and do all that funny stuff. You're right, though. It does block some. Actually, it probably blocks a lot, but it's not the only way that people have gotten through. And again, these people are brilliant. That's all they do is they dream and they scam and they try to figure out how to do this. Go around the rules. Yep.
So how safe is it when you've been locked out of that account? You say, and sometimes I can't even remember the usernames.
Yeah.
To request the username and to request a password reset, is that safe to go ahead and do that then?
Yeah.
Change everything?
Yeah, so her question is if you forget your username or password, is it safe to go ahead and request a reset? Yes. You always need to verify. So if you don't know your password, you go reset the password, you get an email within 30 to 60 seconds, it's most likely okay. But it's the weird ones where you're like, oh, did I do that? Did I reset the password? Because they'll do that. They'll try and send you fake password resets. Or even more so, they'll tell you, oh, hey, your password has been active for 90 days. we need you to reset it now. So you just have to be aware of that. But yes, in general, you shouldn't be afraid to change your password. You just have to be very aware of what you're doing.
You know, a lot of, I know with mine, that one of our sites that we have to go to for payroll or whatever, that it forces you to change it every 90 days or 60 days or something like that. So it's just, we just initiated ourselves, or when it says that the password, if you've gone in and you've tried to get in, it says the password's no longer good, then you should be safe on that same screen to say, get a new one.
Generally speaking, yes. You always, and the reason why I sound hesitant on that is because, again, these people are very smart and they find out ways to make things look very good. But as long as it seems very legitimate and it doesn't seem like a weird step out there, then you're okay. That's true too. Yeah. No, you're fine. There's also, I'm going to talk about password rotation as well later on in the slides, because that's another method that a lot of companies use. Okay. There we go. So here's the breach thing I'm talking about. Ugh. So this website is called Have I Been Pwned, which, does anyone know what the word pwned means? It's a newer age colloquial term to mean like you've gotten got, right? So have you been compromised? Let's say it like that. So I will put in my email here. Let's do my work one. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I can't type blindly apparently. Okay, great. It's not realistic. Well, maybe for my work one it is, but for the average person, no. Let's see here. Let me just make sure I'm not doing anything crazy to myself here really quick. And I'll put in my own.
Do we have to put the symbols in there, Dylan, to go to that website?
No.
Just use how I did WNED.
So the links to all of the demos I'm giving are on the back of your handout. I was already way ahead of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'll show you mine really quick. So this is my personal email address. So these are, based on the data they have available, these are things that I've been breached in or been part of a breach, my information, specifically my email address is how they look it up, but they also will notify other information here. So Telegram is like an instant messaging thing that a lot of tech companies use, so that's not a really good one. Who uses Life 360 or knows of it? Does anyone know what Life 360 is? So Life 360 is like a family location sharing app. So, not to give you bad news, but in July of 2024, Life 360 had a, this doesn't mean that you were breached. That means that my email was breached, to be clear. But for me, from the Life 360 breach, they got my email address, my name, and my phone number, potentially. So this is a great tool to use, right? So you can go in here and see. Sorry, I'm not sure what all that is. Anyway, what did I click on? AT&T. So AT&T is another big one. Birth dates, email addresses, government issued IDs, which is usually your driver's license, your DL number, your name, your phone number, your physical address. Again, this does not mean that my ID was stolen. This means that all AT&T knows is that some people's government issued IDs were stolen. It is, it's on the back. It's called Have I Been Pwned, which is a weird word, I know, but it's a very good database. Gosh. Yes.
I get a lot of these things that say that there's been a breach. I don't know what we're supposed to do with them now.
I have content on that.
Okay.
I do. I'm addressing that because I know. So right at this point, all I want you to understand is that there are tools to help you see where your information has gone. And then this also has password check. So this is based on your email, but also we can do like, I typed John123. So John123 has been compromised 9,000 times. Right. So this is a very handy tool to use, and I think it makes my point very clear, what I'm trying to make. This is not panic seeking. I'm not asking anyone to be scared of this. I just want you to be aware that what we're talking about is very serious, right? But it doesn't mean you're necessarily in trouble if I just taught you something. It's okay. We'll get you there. Okay, any questions on that? Yes?
So with that site, you can type in your passwords and see if you've been pwned. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It just means, but to clarify, that doesn't mean that you've been pwned. That just means that your password that you're using has been used somewhere else. So it could mean that your password was used, but unless you're seeing weird traffic or weird activity on any of those accounts, let's say Facebook, as long as you're not seeing anything weird on Facebook, that just means this is your chance to change the password before anything weird does happen. That's what this is about. Not about saying, oh, you're in trouble now. That's about, oh, let's make sure we don't get into trouble. That's all I'm about, right? More questions? Yes?
Do you have another handout?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Also, if you give me your email address and stuff, I will send a digital copy of the slides, the video, and this as well. Of course. Yes.
So putting your information into this website is
Great question. I'm glad someone asked that. No, absolutely, absolutely. So no, it in a general sense, as long as you're on a private computer, on a private network, and you're on a secure channel, and what we were talking about earlier is, see this, the HTTPS. The S is the very important part of that. It means secure, which means your data is encrypted from this side to this side and back. So yes, I am so glad someone asked that question. Is it secure to put your password, your one password to everything on this? Yeah. But yes, generally speaking, as long as it's a private computer, private connection. So in other words, as long as you're not at the library using their internet, it's okay. Now, if you are at the library using their computer and their internet, I don't advise that. But the really, really important thing is that the data is encrypted when it goes out and in of that computer. So, great. Any questions? I know there's lots of questions. No, not that I know of. I don't think they have that. But you're talking about like who has your phone number?
Great. I get too many scam texts.
Yes. So I will make a note of that.
Please.
Yeah. So for those of you who have been following me, I'm trying to send out information after every seminar to kind of that. I have an article from the Tech Tune-Up Scams about someone who asked that. There's a couple apps that will help. You can't do anything. I mean, calling is a public privilege, meaning that anyone with your phone number can make a call, but there are certain things that you can do to try and knock those back, right? Unfortunately, there are things we can do to mitigate. There is no cure. There is no cure at this point. That's just, unfortunately, kind of a part of our daily life. I'm not saying that's okay. That's reality. But
there's no site like this can give us a history like this does.
So sort of. So like if you put your email address in there, usually your email or your phone are associated with each other, and then it'll actually tell you, like on that other one, AT&T, it said phone numbers.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you can use this as a tool for that as well. Yes, sir.
I was doing some banking stuff, and they demanded that I go to the public library and use their computer because it was the only one secure in their mindset. What was wrong with that idea?
Public library.
It was about 3 years ago.
I know it's not possible, but I'd like to talk to that person to see what their rationalization was.
incognito
I'll answer that right after this because I'm still forming a thought on that one. Maybe their concept, so if I'm giving I don't agree with that, just to be clear. But if I were to give them the benefit of the doubt, thinking that they thought they were telling you to do something good, maybe it's because they assume that public libraries will have secured and good technical support and secure traffic out of their building or secured networks. I don't 100% agree with that, but I could see the thought process. My mind, that sounds, if it was a legitimate call, that sounds kind of scammy. That's kind of having you go to another place to do something is usually a tactic of scammers.
It was a bank manager, and
Sure.
I've been dealing with her for several months.
I believe that,
And
but
she said, go to the library. I don't want to talk to you on yours. Go to
Huh.
the library and take care of this.
Would it do anything without speed? Maybe his home speed wasn't fast enough or what?
maybe, but that's not what it's sounding like to me. It sounds like security, like I don't know. If I were her manager, I would probably advise her against doing that. But that's a very weird situation. I would like some more information on that, actually. I'll write that down.
Mike, did you go there?
Yeah, I went to the library.
Yeah.
I was told.
Yeah. And to be clear, I don't think you...
That would have been a better option.
Yeah, go to the bank. Yeah.
Well, and I would have went to the bank. It was Timbuktu. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've been dealing with it for several months, so I know who she was. Had the
Yeah.
same name.
And that does make a big difference. It seems kind of weird to me to... Yeah. No, but
That could have been.
maybe she did, but right. Yeah. But that's a good example, and I'm glad, because that's kind of the gray areas that I talk about, right? Because it's very clear, or I like to believe that everything I'm saying up here is very clear, but in that situation, it's not, and that's a great one. Thank you. So you asked, does incognito windows help with all of this? Not really. So incognito windows have more to do in terms of like privacy, not necessarily security. So what that means is privacy has to do with the amount of data that you're giving to certain companies. But if you're banking on incognito secured, vice versa, doesn't make a lot of difference. But it's a good question because I think that's a valid concern. Okay. We're only in section 1. I have 3 sections. Sorry, guys. Okay, creating passwords. Okay, so not to try and fly through this, but we're going to look at the opposite of what I just taught you, right? Okay, the first thing I want to say is, who decides what is a good password? Like, we always hear, oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to do that. Why and who's the authority? So the 2 big ones in the United States are NIST, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology, and CISA, which is a Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which that is actually a sub-department of the Homeland Defense. So they're big, and I've actually met with people from CISA. They do very good work. And these are a couple other more global companies. And then when you become as big as Microsoft or Apple or as Google, they start writing some of the policies as well because they're the ones who see it all. So, and then again, they gain that backing because they're used by governments, financial institutions, tech companies, etc. So again, I'm just trying to reinforce that I'm not just telling you some crazy information. There is some reasons behind that. So what makes a strong password? In general, by NIST, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology, 12 plus characters, add complexity, which is a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols. This should all be in the handout too, so if you're rushing to write it all down, you should be okay. No real words or patterns, right? Do not use previously compromised passwords, and then don't contain personal information. Personal information is anything that can relate to you. Anything. Whether it's a number without a name, whether it's just a name, without a last name, anything. Is that clear? I think that all makes sense to us. Okay, password length. Okay, so if you were to create a secure, I'll say secure password just based on length, So you have a couple different things. Some people try to just do the whole random word with some capitals in it type thing. And adding capitals does increase password complexity, because if you think of having 26 letters in our alphabet, if you add capitals and lowercase, that times 26 to the power of 26, right? So you have double the characters, which is good. That means it's a good thing for you. Then we kind of have the sentence thing going on here, right? Or we have things completely random. Right, these are example of strong, albeit, passwords based solely off length. I know, they're kind of silly, aren't they? But silly is good because you're not thinking, no one's going to think that straightforward, right?
Can we use him?
Yeah, I would not know. Yeah. Right, yeah. No, please don't use those. Complexity. So, yeah, these are insanely complex in terms of any regard towards memorization at all, right? But this is what I mean by complexity. It's complexity in this instance means a variety of types of characters, uppercase, lowercase numbers, and non-numerics, or special characters. No patterns, again. Or to add patterns, I'm sorry. No patterns means like what we talked about before, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. But also, like in this example, even though winter is a word and 2025 is a number, people do summer 2025. Even though you're adding complexity, that's still a pattern that can be easily replicated, right? So you've got to think of like that too. Does that make sense? Because I unfortunately have people in my organization who do that, and that's not considered secure because you could run through that. Or 2025 winter, 2025 summer, etc. And then things like this. Compromised passwords, of course, like I was showing before, don't use those. You have to keep in mind that things like this, password 123, QWERTY, ABCDEFG, anything like that. I know, I always hate saying that because I know that sounds ludicrous, but there are people who still do this. I promise. Okay, and then no personal information. And again, personal information is anything that can be tied directly to you. Names or usernames in your password. If you have like a common username I use, if it's not an email address, is DylanW97. First name, last initial, birth year, which is fine for a username. But if I use that username inside my password, that's not a good thing, right? Even if it seems complex. Pet names, previous or current, in my opinion. Think about all of the times you've posted about your pets on Facebook, social media, and then you've added their names. So if you're going to ask my honest opinion, I would still advise against it because number one, names are still common words. So in other words, Fluffy, right? Common, maybe it's your pet's name and it was long ago, but there's a lot of people who may have that name, and they can run through that. So you just, yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's all kind of part of that, right? Birth dates, anniversaries, hobbies, favorite sports teams. I think we talked about that as well. Phone numbers or addresses. Again, even though in your case an address could potentially be more secure than other things, if the password has the word street or drive or something like that, you're shortening the amount of characters that they have to guess randomly. Am I saying it's insecure? No. That's why I've given you tools like that password checker so you can see how strong they are. But they're not considered best practice. Yeah.
On my address, I just use the numbers.
Sure.
I didn't put the state, the street, or any of that stuff.
Um,
There's still a couple of information searches that can find her previous address and stuff out there, and they can do it for free.
That was my maiden name, in the 1940s.
Oh, they can find it. It's even like if you do an obituary search. really quick and easy to pull it up from
Yeah, I mean,
forever. It's on there.
Do they want that information, if they search that at different places?
oh yeah, I mean, if it's been in a breach, so unfortunately, I mean, have we all heard of the dark web and things like that? So usually when there's a breach in one company, that information, whoever stole that generally uploads that to a huge list of information, and that is sold off for auction usually, or however they want to distribute that. But you have to assume that even though your AT&T account was compromised, if that information relates to anything else, you could be compromised there as well. Yeah.
So do these people, go after just like one person, or I know not at one time, but they personalize going in?
It depends on how valuable they believe you to be. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Depends on how valuable you believe to be. So generally, no. So a lot of the times they start with spraying a whole bunch of what we call spraying, which means that they take a whole bunch of information. It could even be like you saw that there was 9,000 passwords that were John 123. So in your mind, I'm sure most people are thinking, okay, they're putting my email address in and then trying all of my passwords. But a lot of times what they do is they take all those compromised passwords and they try them up against all the emails that they have. So there's different ways of doing that as well. And then so let's say that they get a little nibble, then they might try harder. And let's say they get a little bigger of a nibble and they'll try harder. And what that could mean, what is that nibble? It could mean, oh, you opened an email, but you didn't click on a link. Or you answered a phone call, but you didn't say anything. You know, it's like just a little nibble, just a little more to feel like, okay, there's some potential here and they might try. So so it's hard to tell is what I guess I'm saying. It's hard to tell whether you're going to be directly targeted or if you're just part of a larger scheme. So that's why you have to go, and that's the same, and that concept is the same as what I'm saying about the addresses. Is using only your house number probably safe? Probably. Do I want to put a blanket statement over that? I don't, because I don't know. And that's the thing that we're trying to do. We're just trying to, unfortunately, they're making our lives very hard so that we don't have to be in that position, right? That answer your question? I'm sorry. I don't have a good straight answer for you. Yeah. Okay, so additional bad habits to consider. Again, don't reuse passwords across websites or other accounts. Don't save passwords in browsers if it isn't secure. Now, I know I just probably uprooted a lot of people here. So I know Chrome, Firefox, whatever, they ask you to save your passwords a lot. That is not necessarily a bad thing. The key important thing here is the device isn't secure. So a lot of these web browsers, they try to do this automatically. So if you're using someone else's computer or a public computer, it will ask to save. Click no. Or if you're using your personal computer and you don't have a password on it, that is also considered insecure. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying you can't use Chrome password saver or Firefox password saver. You just have to make sure that it is also secured. Okay. And don't share passwords. I'm going to get to how you can securely share passwords if you need to, because me and my family will all share streaming services. So obviously you have to share a password to log into that. There are ways you can do that securely, but in a general sense, if you're not doing anything else to protect your passwords, they shouldn't be shared with anyone. Yes?
What about when you're a website, and I don't know if it is, they use Google, and they say, oh, you want to use your Google account, you want to use your Google account to sign in.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm going to write that down before I forget because I will repeat. I just don't want to forget. Okay, so her question was, when you're creating an account, and a lot of what we call those is identity providers. So Google, Apple, Microsoft. So instead of going to a website, let's say Pinterest. Let's say you go to Pinterest and it's like, okay, create a username and password, or sign in with Apple, or sign in with Google, or sign in with Microsoft. My answer on whether that's secure or not is dependent on how secure your Microsoft account is, or how secure your Google account is, or your Apple account. If your Apple account is secure, great, by all means. It makes your life simpler, and generally speaking, that's a secure way to do things. But you just have to make sure that the account you're using as a proxy is also secure.
You say you're like,
Yeah.
you have your secure computer with you,
Yes.
and you want to go on to Netflix.
Yes.
When you go through the hotel's
Yep.
Wi-Fi,
Uh-huh.
are you now no longer secure?
That is a great question. I will repeat again. If you're in a public space, like a hotel, cafe, etc., here at the YMCA on this network, is that secure? There's a lot to consider with that. So and generally speaking, I would say unless you have to, I would not check banking information. But the question is if you can just connect to that Wi-Fi without putting anything in, like it's open, any bad actor, any bad person can also do that. And then if they're on the same network as you, it's not exactly a shoe in to get your information, but it puts a huge hurdle down for them. So that's a thing to consider. How secure is that network? Like, how secure is it to attach to that network, right? Hotels, a lot of them use your last name and a room number. More secure, but I wouldn't consider that like Fort Knox or anything, right? But, this is a huge but, if a bad actor, a bad person is on the same Wi-Fi as you, and you input your username and password for a bank, as long as the bank has an encrypted channel, and the encrypted channel is the S for secure on the HTTP, then that means when you send your password to the bank, they should not be able to see it. Not impossible, but not. So my point is should you be fearful? No. Should you be very cautious of what you're doing? Yes. So not unless you have to, is what I guess my answer is. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if you go on Amazon,
Yes.
buy something in a public place.
Yes.
Then that hits your credit card stuff, doesn't it?
True. So,
Yes.
so there's a couple different things here. So technically, if you have an Amazon account and it has your credit card saved, usually that's not a transaction over the open air of that credit card information because it's already saved. They usually just pull what they have locally. But again, if you're putting a new card or something in, that data is transmitted. It should be secured, but also something I would not risk.
Something they have to be careful though, marketplace is different than through Amazon.
Correct. Yep.
Because the marketplace is not secure.
Yes, correct. So if you're, sorry, I think I know what you mean. If you're like giving someone, what do you mean by marketplace?
They advertise things for sale on the marketplace.
Oh yes. It is still usually, it can be iffy. Long story short, don't give credit card information to weird entities. And if you're not in a secure location, I would not unless you absolutely have to. We're always going to err on the safer side. Yes.
I actually just use my phone as a hotspot rather than.
I think that's a better option. No, I think that's a better option. She said she uses her phone as a hotspot, which most phones nowadays have that option. There are still risks, but it's a lot less than using a hotel Wi-Fi. There's always a risk, and I don't mean it like that. But I understand the concept you came up with. Yeah, no. And my goal is, and I'm not trying to sound like, make everything seem like doomsday. You just have to be very careful with blanket statements, right? So, okay. So again, passwords are easy. Passwords are very easy to make bad. They're very hard to make good. So where's the compromise, right? Where do we go between this is secure and this is manageable, right? That's all security is. That's what we're taught. Okay, character substitutions. as I talked about before, that is a great tactic if you're using manually created passwords, meaning you create it yourself. So there's a couple examples up here of what you could put in that is not so secure and what you could transform it into. I think these should be in your bulletin as well. If they're not, I will edit it and add. Okay. Though some things still don't use famous quotes, because if you use something that's famous, you could run through all the different variations of that. Names, birthdays, personal info. Even if you turn the at or the A in Dylan to an at sign, it's still the word Dylan. It's just one letter off. That's very easy to guess, right? These examples, they get a lot harder. They add a lot more complexity. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure I'm not losing you guys. There's a lot of information, I know. Okay. And so we use tools like this to help create them for us. This is also in the back of your bulletin. You can see that I just asked it for a 20-character random password. That is not feasible for everyone. I get it. We'll get there. I promise I'm still getting to the easy part, or what makes your life easy. But you can use tools like this. This one particularly lets you choose how many characters to put in, if you want to include numbers or symbols, and then the password. Now, along with character substitutions, which is a great method of protecting your passwords, we also have started to use the term passphrase instead of a password. And I have a slide on that, but since I'm here, they can also look like something like this. So you're essentially trying to use mnemonic devices. So this is separated by dashes, but you can use words that actually make sense to memorize them easier. Now, you don't have to use a random password generator. You can use random words that make sense to you. But I just wanted to show the point that using words that make sense to you and then potentially using character substitution with that makes it a lot more memorable and a lot more secure. Okay. I can see, and I will send these slides to everyone, but these are some common, I just want to throw these in here, like for A's, B's, C's. It's usually revolved around shape or etc. And it's just, the goal is to make it not a number, so it's easy to guess, but easy to correlate. I didn't mean to blow by that. I will send the slides because I feel like I'm passphrases. We already looked at that. Okay. So who's ready to get to where our lives start becoming easier? Who's starting to feel overwhelmed? Okay. I'm sorry. That's my due diligence, is giving you all that information. I know that's overwhelming and I get it. But these passwords are very, very important. They're, like I said, they're the difference between you having your information secured and them being able to access it. So what is going to make our lives easier? And that's going to be password vaults. Great. Who uses a password vault, or do you know of a password vault? Yeah.
I know about them, but I don't use it.
Great. That's fine. We're here to learn. So we're going to learn what these are and how to use them. Okay. I know I'm taking a lot of your time and I apologize. I'm going to stay late if you guys want to until Kelly kicks me out. So I'm going to go on. Okay. So what are they? So what a password vault does, it logs your credentials. So in other words, when you put in a password, it'll ask you to save it many times like Chrome does. When you go to a new website, it'll put the password in for you, so you don't have to type it. It will help you generate strong, unique passwords rather than you trying to come up with one. And it'll keep your passwords all nice and safe and encrypted. Great. Fantastic. That just took out all the hard work. Sorry to make you guys put you through all that when we had an easier solution, but I want you to understand what we're trying to do here. And then how they work is you create one master password, which I know that sounds key to the kingdom, right? I'll address that. You can add passwords manually, and like mine, I keep my credit card information in it. I keep form fills. So in other words, even though it's called a password manager, I've got my address and my name and everything in it. So when you get to those login forms, you can just fill all that out automatically. If you go to a website, you need your credit card, not a sketchy website, please. It'll autofill all that for you, and so on and so forth. So in other words, it takes all of that really crucial, important information that's very hard to memorize and secure, and it takes care of it all for you. I'm going to go over a couple options here really quick, but essentially key considerations are ease of use. This is going to be for most of us. So I'm going to give you a couple options here, but they look different. They do the same thing, but they look different. So you might have to play around with what makes most sense to you when you're using it. Sharing options. A lot of these, yes. I'll get there. I promise. Yep. Yep. 2FA support. I will explain what that is, but that is all of them have that now. So you're not missing out anything. This is just things to keep in your mind. Sharing options. So in other words, how do I share passwords with people? Or even myself, if the inevitable happens and something happens to us and they need access to our accounts, how can we ensure that that the right people can get into those accounts? Yeah, and if it costs or not. Great. These names should be in your bulletin on the back as well, but a couple free options, and I say free because there's usually a limit of what you can do free, and then they pay for more features, but all of these are very affordable in my opinion. KeePass, this is a very advanced one. I just wanted you to be aware, because if you start looking into password managers, you're going to hear this name. It's a big one. I don't suggest it for like home use, but I want you to be aware of that name. Bitwarden is a very, very popular option. It's not the one I use, but I don't have any problems with it. We use it professionally. 1Password is actually the one that I use. And then Dashlane is another really good one. And then you can see that a lot of these password managers, like NordVPN, which was the most commonly compromised passwords, they actually have a password manager as well. So some of these companies, they do more than just password management, and they bundle some other things in. I don't have time to go through all those bundles, but that's definitely something you could ask me questions on if you have them, or just things to consider. But as you can see, I think it's cheaper per year. I think I pay $20, $25 a year to use 1Password. I understand that money can be difficult sometimes, but they do a good job at trying to make that accessible to a lot of people. I don't have a lot of information on these yet because they're newer, but technically if you have an Apple device like an iPhone, they used to have what they call Keychain, and Keychain still exists, but now they're putting it into more of like a modern password manager like they do. So you can definitely use this, and it will work a lot of the same way. The beauty of modern password managers is that you can put it on your computer, your phone, your tablet. It's all one place. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to use it. Have I lost anyone yet? I'm so sorry. I know this is a lot of information. Any questions thus far? I know. I'm starting to see some of the eyes glaze over, and I apologize. This is the fun part, and I'm sorry if you have to go. I really tried to get through this, but it's all important. I'm going to pull up my password manager, and we'll show you. So let me disconnect really quick.
We might break this up next time.
I know. If I'm going to be completely honest, I tried. So when Kelly, because I'm starting to do this again, I've done these classes before. Kelly and I were like coming up with these classes, and I tried to cull information out of this, and I just felt I couldn't. All of it was good in my opinion, I know. So
Maybe it should be 2 classes.
yeah, absolutely. And I think I will teach this again at some point, because I've already have good ideas from you guys, right? So I'll make that as a note. Okay. Yeah, I know. No, and you guys have been awesome, and I know it's a lot of information. I know it is. And this is a lot of what people don't want to talk about either. Okay. So the beauty of this, and of course it's technology, so there's always some difficulties, right? But the beauty of this is this probably makes passwords as easy as they can possibly be. So again, I'm using 1Password as the product. The concepts that we're going to go over are going to be the exact same. All the password managers, they all do the same thing, or attempt to do the same thing. So as you can see here, one of the beauties of password managers, is they let you break up your passwords into vaults, or a lot of them do. And whether it's called a vault or a tag, a vault or a tag, it's whatever. So you can see I separate my personal passwords from my work passwords, from passwords I use for these demos and stuff, or the demo that I'm going to show you here, how we're going to add passwords, other things like that. Great. That's just a way of organization, right? So in other words, you don't have a whole bunch of passwords here and then you don't know where they're all at. They give you organization or ways to organize. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, I know this says tech skills for kids. I'm sorry, that was nothing towards you guys at all. This was just a fantastic example that I could find. No. So I promise that has nothing to do with it. But this is the dreaded screen. Oh no, I need to get to something. I need to create an account. Gosh dang it, I got to create another password. All right, it looks like it's going to be John123. I'll deal with it later. Yep, exactly. Okay. Crap. Okay, so what do we do? All right, well, it's like fine. Actually, I'm on the wrong one. Apologize. This is already logging in, so I'll get there. But I want to do a register. Oh boy. Yeah, that's a lot of information, right? And we got to do this for how many companies, right? So what I did, and I can show you how, but I saved sorry, that's my wife, you can see there. So I saved my name, I saved my contact card in my password vault. So it has my name, my number, my address, everything, my phone number, but it's all secured in my vault. Sorry. I'm trying to speak too fast. And because I save that, I can just click this little button. Look at that. Beautiful. And it's secure, right? Also prevents typos. There are certain things that I've seen where people put in their email address wrong into account and they lose access because they send it to an email they don't have. This also helps mitigate that, right? Human error is a real thing. Great, and it's like, okay, so here's the hard part, right? Like, my gosh, I got to create another password, 8 characters long, uppercase and lowercase, at least one number, have a special character, right? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just start. We're just gonna click here. Oh, okay. Oh, great. It's an excellently strong password. I guess we're done. That was it. It was really that easy. Yeah, right? Yeah.
I want you to repeat what it says on there without hitting the eyeball.
Sure. So, no. Sorry, I just realized. Yeah, no. So in other words, it's giving you a suggestion for a password. And this password is great because it's complex, it's random, it doesn't mean anything. I don't know any of my passwords anymore, except for one, and that's into the vault. Don't know a single one of them. And that's because it handles it all for me. I don't need to know them. And that's the great thing. Even if someone interrogated me, I couldn't tell them. I'd be like, I'm sorry, you gotta go find it somewhere else. Yes?
If your computer's already doing this, does that mean you have a vault on your
if you're logging in, so Chrome, Google Chrome, if you're using Chrome as a browser, it is actually a built-in password manager. Now there are plus and minuses to that, which I will get to. But yes, Chrome now will do some of these functions already, where it's asking you to save these passwords. You just need to make sure that you're securing your Google account for that, right? I know. But anyway, but my point is the good news is that it took me 5 seconds to figure out. No. But anyway, so we put in our password here, right? And then, okay, now it's our password. Now see this little box that popped up? Now it's asking me to save that. Okay, great. I'm going to save that. Great. It's saved. Now it's going to be there for future reference. Yes?
Where did this all start? How did you get there?
Yes. So that's the harder part, right? So yeah. So you have to buy a product, one of those examples that I gave you, or use the free ones like Google. Yes, you have to. Right. There's a little bit of setup that you have to do with it. And the reason I didn't go over that is because depending on what device you're using and what you're using, it's all going to be different. So I didn't want to add confusing subject matter. But yes, to get this far, you have to either find a free tool or one of the ones I suggested, or buy one, and then you install it. But usually after that, it's very simple. I know that's easy for me to say, I get that, but yes.
So do you have to, you're going to do this, then do you have to go to each one of your websites and let it create a new password?
No, you don't, and I will show you that. So yes, so obviously to have your passwords in the password manager, you've got to put them in there somehow. So you've got two ways of doing that, right? So the easier way is, so like this one. So if I put in my email address, like let's say I go to this is my email account or my bank account. I go every week, right? And this is the first time I'm doing it since I've had my password manager. I'm going to put in my password, and I'm going to hit enter. And then it's going to go ahead and say, oh, hey, I noticed that you've never been here or you don't have your password saved for this. Do you want to save it? And you're going to hit save. Yes. Great. So now it's saved. Let's say we're coming back to it next week. So I'm going to refresh this. Our password is not here anymore, right? Now we need to know it. So I'm going to click here, and then it's going to be there for me. It's going to say, oh, hey, you've been here before. I have an entry for you. So you're going to click on that, and it's going to autofill for you. Does that make sense? Is what I did make sense? No? Okay.
I have a question about I think I got it on Google, and because I go to manager, password manager, and I'm able to find all the passwords and all that. Well, the funny thing is, I went and tried to find that particular, on this one, it was the Missouri lost property, claim lost property.
Sure.
Well, what was funny is on my phone, it put in the password, but then it jumps you to the place so you can't even look on the little eyeball to see what the password was. But I went to the site that's the password manager, and it wasn't listed there. Where's another place it would hide? It was saved, but I don't know what the password is.
Yes, great question. So in other words, phantom passwords, where'd they go? So in other words, something asked me to save the password. I saved the password, but it's not saved. What? So typically what's happening, so like if your phone versus computer or whatever, I don't know your specific case, but I'm going to just give a broad case. Let's say on your computer you're using Chrome. You log into the website. Chrome asks you to save the password. It's saved in Chrome. Then later you need to go to that same password or site on your phone. Chrome is not on your phone. Chrome doesn't know of this. And so your password is saved on your computer, but not your phone. And that is one of the beauties of using a third party. Right, because like I said, Apple, Chrome, they all provide things. One of the nice things about using a third party application like 1Password is that it goes on your phone, it goes on your computer, it goes on your tablet. whatever. So you'll have this.
You have to put it on there.
You do. You just have to install it, but you don't have to. You don't. Once you save the password once, it'll save everywhere else.
It'll map over to the other. Okay.
Yes. So you only have to save it once.
Do,
Yes.
do all of these systems, all these managers, like the board that keep apps that are free, do the same thing?
Yes, they do. They change slightly the way in which they do it, but yeah, the whole goal of all of those softwares are to store your passwords, suggest passwords to be stored like this, or and then sync across the cloud.
So the first time you go in, and it asks for your password.
Mhm.
Will it suggest a password for you?
Yes.
Or you have to put in the one that if you don't put in the one that you've already had, how can you get into your?
Yes, so that's a great question. So in other words, let's say you just started a brand new password manager and you don't have anything in it yet, but you go to your bank, it's going to suggest you a password. You don't have to use the password. It's just a suggestion. I don't ever have to use anything that it tells me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my old password, and then once I log in, it's going to say, oh, okay, do you want to save it? So it's going to recognize, so it's going to suggest you a password, yes, but it will let you put in your old password and then go ahead and save it anyway.
But if it puts in a new password, will it go into that?
No. So if it suggests you a new password, if you're not actually actively like changing the password, it won't take effect. And I know that sounds confusing, but these softwares have gotten smart enough that it can tell whether you're trying to log in, try to change a password, try to register. So it has a little bit of intelligence behind it to say, oh, you're logging in, you're not resetting your password, or oh, you're resetting your password, you're not logging in, things like that.
Okay, you go in and you log in,
Mhm.
you say, use my old password. Now, can you go back in then
Yes.
and
So
change that password?
yeah, so in other words, let's say you do want to change your password. The best way to do that would be go ahead and log in with your current credentials, right? So 90% of websites, you have to do that anyway to get in to be able to access to change your password. So, and then it'll go ahead and ask you to save it. Great. Go into your bank account, whatever it is, do the reset procedure for that. And then when that happens, it'll suggest you a new password. And then you'll save the password, and then it'll suggest a password. And then if you use that password, let me back up. It'll suggest the password. You'll click on it. It'll type that password in for you. Then when you hit change, like the final like do it button, it'll say, oh, do you want to update the old password? And you'll hit yes. Does that make sense? Sorry. Yes.
So currently, I have been spending days in Google and in Apple, and my husband is deceased, and I'm trying to get rid of his passwords, his accounts, and it has been killing me.
Sure.
If I do this, how do I get the passwords that I have very tediously put together in Apple and copied over into Google and put it in Chrome and get rid of all that stuff?
How do you get rid of the accounts?
No, how do you get rid of the password that you've already all put together and matched up?
So great question.
My hands.
Let me ask you, what's your end goal? Is it to get rid of the passwords, like completely, or just store them and know you have them for later? I think you.
It's totally management across, I have a PC, I have one PC, and I have multiple Apple devices.
Mm-hmm.
I have my husband's stuff that needs to all go away,
Mm-hmm.
and I use Safari, and I use Chrome, and I use Google.
Got it. So you're wanting to take.
It's a mess.
So you want to take a whole bunch of different sources and put them into one. 100%. That's all this is. That's why this exists, right?
This will take care of it for me, and I don't have to have my keys.
No. So
I have
let's.
that experience in registering.
Right. So let's say you're in that position, right? So you can. So having it do everything for you automatically is great, but let's say you do already have like a large sum of passwords that you need to put in. You can do it manually still. You can go ahead and hit a new item, and you can add a login. You can add notes, credit cards, other documents, just a password by itself, right? Yeah, and like a password seems counterintuitive with login, but a password means like if you have a gate key to somewhere or something like that, you can either add it as a note or as a password. Identities, so that identity is like what I use to fill all the way down. So you can definitely go in and add stuff manually too. Yes. Sure.
Fear that the password manager system itself would be compromised. If bad characters can get into AT&T, why can't they get into this?
100%. You're absolutely right. I'm going to address that unless I'm out of time. Okay, as long as, yeah, I'm okay as long as everyone else is. So, so that is later on. Any questions about the password managers first? I'm sure lots of questions, but any? Okay. So, great question. Okay, so protecting your vault. Okay, so if your password can be compromised, what keeps the one password that keeps all of your passwords protected, right? Okay, number one, your master password, the one password to everything, needs to be extremely complex. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If you're going to have one password that opens all of your passwords, it needs to be, like mine is about 32 characters and it's random. Hang on. I know that sounds rough too. I'll get to how you can make that easier for you. But number one, you have to make it complex, like extremely complex. Number two, two-factor authentication. So this is where I'm getting to the two-factor authentication part, right? This is essentially your password is one factor, and so two-factor is anything that means that's not your password. On your phone, if you have Face ID or anything like that, that's the second factor. When they send a code to your email, that's a factor. When they send a text to your, or an SMS text to your phone, that's a factor. So all of that. That is by far the best way, having that enabled to also protect your vault. And then biometrics also help, like I mentioned. That's also a two-factor, but specifically I wanted to call out the biometrics, usually Face ID or fingerprint. So those are the two main ways to protect your vault from being compromised.
What if it's not my vault I'm concerned about? What if I'm concerned about the site's protection?
Sure.
AT&T being hacked or this group being hacked.
Right. So if you have a password with AT&T and they're compromised and that password is compromised, there's not much you can do in regards to AT&T other than changing the password that you use for them. But what having the vault does, it helps isolate AT&T. And what I mean by that is we get into habits of creating similar passwords or using password conventions. And so if you had a whole bunch of passwords with the same convention, the AT&T breach could release that, release the way you do that. Like I said, John 1, 2, 3. Like if you did John 4, 5, 6, et cetera, that vault is going to help you make those passwords more complex and different from any other one. So you can isolate to AT&T. So if you hear about AT&T, you can change that password and your other ones should be fine.
I think that she's asking what happens if the company, one password.
Oh, got it. I'm so sorry. Great. Thank you very much. I totally misunderstood your question. That is also a great question. What keeps your vault on LastPass from being, or OnePass from being compromised? So I won't lie to you. So you just heard me say LastPass, which is a company that I used to use that had multiple intrusions of information, right? So they were compromised. Very scary, right? I moved away from them. There was a lot of people that moved away from them because it's your information. So are they susceptible to breaches still? Yes. what do they do about that? And why should we not be worried about that? Number one, there's never a 0% of risk, but with like 1Password or Bitwarden specifically, without getting into terrible technical details, the way in which they store your data is very like 1Password has an option where you don't even store it with them. You store it on one computer, and then when you make a change, it uploads and downloads to the other changes. So they don't even have a single copy themselves. You're just using the tool, the front end. So they may not even have your information. Or the way that they do it is they encrypt it. It starts getting really deep, and I'm trying to very easily summarize that. But in other words, they are a huge security company, and all these are they, and they take huge measures to make sure that that data is secure. But you are correct. At the end of the day, you are still underneath their guidance, right? But unlike AT&T or those other companies, I mean, it's hard to say that. I know AT&T is a big company, but I can't speak on how they actually store your information. There are guidelines on how they should do that, but it's really about how they handle your data. I know that's not a clear answer, and I could pull up some very technical information, but yeah, sorry. I wish it was easier to explain, and some of that stuff is proprietary for that very reason. So they kind of keep some of that to themselves, because if they put how they do it in there, they could figure out how to get around that. So you know what I mean? So some of it's hard to even know or describe. But if anything, track record is to be believed. So like I said, that one company I used to use, they had multiple instances where they had breaches. A lot of these companies have none, right? Like whereas AT&T, as an example, has had multiple or things like that. So track record is also important. Yes?
So how do you find out if a company like 1Password, the one that you were using, how do you find out that they have breached and you go, oh, I want out of that?
Yeah, so great question. So legally, they should provide you with that information. They should give you a notice saying, hey, your information was compromised. If not, there are certain tools. So there are automatic tools and manual tools you can use. Like that website, Have I Been Pwned? It'll show you, that's like a manual search. You can go in and see if you've been compromised. There are also other services, like one of the password managers I suggested was Dashlane, and they actually have a dark web monitoring service. And that is essentially a service where they go and you give them information that they should check for, and as breaches happen, they will notify you. So should come from the source. You can use third-party searches, and then you can also do research yourself.
So kind of like if you go onto your computer and run antivirus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Run stuff like that too.
Yep. So antivirus is very old school in terms of like most of the attacks were vulnerabilities for the system you were using. Antivirus is still important, but most modern instances where people are losing money or things like that are coming from frauds and scams, which usually has to do with leaked information. So think of like identity scanning as like the modern antivirus. It's moved away from the computers and it's more personal now. So you're more looking at that. Any questions?
I have got something else.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. There's not much more. We got pretty much the gist of it. Are there any general questions for me?